I heard a loud noise in the heavens, and the Spirit instantly appeared to me and said the serpent was loosened. And Christ had laid down the yoke he had borne the sins of men, and that I should take it on and fight against the serpent. For the time was fast approaching when the first should be last, and the last should be first. The murder of this family, 5 in number, was the work of a moment. There was a little infant sleeping in a cradle that was forgotten until we had left the house and gone some distance when Henry and Will returned and killed it.
Over the next 24 hours, Nat Turner led a small group of slaves from farm to farm, killing every white man, woman, and child they encountered. They gathered guns and more recruits during a brief but bloody revolt that spread terror throughout the slave-holding South. Nat Turner was captured and hanged. In the days before his execution, he agreed to tell his story.
You must surely bear it.
But after his death, his words became the property of others, as his body was during his life. His story has been continually retold since 1831. He has been depicted as a great and inspiring and vilified as an insane fanatic. Each author possesses Nat Turner, transforming his identity and the meaning of his revolt. Although today we cannot clearly make out the face of the man, he continues to provoke a bitter debate over the violence that he inspired. For a nation unable to come to terms with the legacy of slavery, Nat Turner remains a troublesome property. Nat Turner's slave rebellion triggered a massive mobilization of local militia and vigilante units in Virginia and neighboring North Carolina. As many as 3,000 armed men were called into action to fight what turned out to be 60 to 80 rebels.
The balance of sheer military power was weighted tremendously against the slaves in this country. Slaves don't have the organization, the access to arms, the military tradition to be able to mobilize a successful insurrection.
Slavery itself was such an abomination that I could see how it would drive men and women to do desperate things. And a slave revolt, by its nature to me, is a pretty desperate act.
Outraged by the sight of the victims of the revolt, including many badly mutilated women and children, the militia and vigilante units engaged in a slaughter of their own.
The violent, brutal reaction is meant as a warning. It's meant to frighten those who might be contemplating acts like this in the future. It's meant to demonstrate the power of white society.
At least 50 and perhaps many more slaves and free blacks were summarily executed in the days after the suppression of the rebellion.
There's no question that there's a cult of violence that surrounds the tension between black and white during slavery times and after. It's hard for us to to fathom cutting off people's heads and putting them on poles, parading them around, hanging bodies up in chains, dismembering the body, taking home souvenirs.
We know all about the victims, the white victims of Turner's Rebellion, who they were, where they were killed, what their names were, what their families were. Nobody knows the names of even all the participants in the Turner Rebellion, and certainly all the innocent blacks who were killed or imprisoned or beaten afterwards. This is not part of our official historical memory. That piece of the story is just forgotten or suppressed and probably can never really be completely recovered.
If a lot of those black people were not the property of white people, a lot more of them would be killed. Wasn't it Virginia law that said if you kill somebody as a slave, the state had to reimburse the cost of the slave or something like that?
Well, will you approach, please?
Every rebel except Nat Turner was quickly killed or captured. During the month of September and on into October, nearly 50 accused rebels stood trial in South Hampton County.
Stand up. Guilty as charged. You shall be hanged by the neck until...
The prisoner is guilty. The court doth value the said slave to the sum of $425.
Ultimately, 19 were hanged, while others were transported and sold outside the boundaries of the state.
The court recommends to the governor that the punishment be commuted to transportation.
And still, Nat Turner remained at large. On September 17, 1831, Virginia Governor John Floyd issued a proclamation offering a $500 reward for the capture of Nat Turner.
Nat is between 30 and 35 years old, 5 feet 6 or 8 inches high, weighs between 150 and 160 pounds, with rather bright complexion, but not a mulatto. Broad-shouldered, large flat nose, large eyes, broad flat feet, rather not...
Governor Floyd's description of Nat Turner is the closest thing we have to a portrait of the man. But it is nothing more than a wanted poster, created to help white men capture a fugitive. We do not know exactly what happened at the capture of Nat Turner, but a 19th century engraving offers one possible image of the moment. We do know it was not until October 30th, 70 days after the outbreak of the rebellion, that Benjamin Phipps stumbled on to Nat Turner's hiding place. The slave had never wandered further than a few miles from his home farm.
Come on out of there. You come on out of there now. Put it down. I said put it down.
The next morning, he was taken to the South Hampton County Jail in Jerusalem to await trial. It was there in a jail cell that Nat Turner first encountered a local lawyer, Thomas R. Gray. Over the next 3 days, Gray interviewed Turner and then published his version of Turner's story, which later became the main source for interpretations of the man.
The late insurrection in Southampton greatly excited the public mind and led to thousands of idle, exaggerated, and mischievous reports. Everything connected to that sad affair was wrapped in mystery until Nat Turner, the leader of that ferocious band whose name resounded throughout our widely extended empire, was captured. Since his confinement, with permission of the jailer, I have had ready access to him and determined, for the gratification of public curiosity, to commit his statements to writing and to publish them with little or no variation to his own work.
Nobody can, I think, say precisely why Thomas R. Gray went into the jail cell on November the 1st, 1831. It could be that he just wanted the public to know. He felt the public had a right to know what Nat Turner had done from Nat Turner's own point of view. It could be that he sought prestige after a great drop in